February show.
Valentine's Day. Yep, the romance show.
Yeah, well.
Romance and finance.
No romance without finance.
That's right.
All right, ladies, everything's looking good, so whenever you are ready.
Welcome to Money Talks. I'm Nancy Stark, and with me today is Deanna Booker. Dee, it is wonderful to see you today.
It's wonderful to see you.
It's
Thank
always
you for
helpful
having
because
me.
you have such good advice for us.
I try.
For those of you who are not aware, Deanna is the Communication and Outreach Manager for Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Maryland and Delaware. They're a local nonprofit agency that is here on the Eastern Shore. And Dee, before we get started, I always like for you to tell us a little bit about what you do, just so people have a frame of reference.
Sure. Like you said, we are a nonprofit community service organization. Our mission is to promote hope and economic self-sufficiency through financial education and counseling. So to that end, we offer a wide array of counseling services, everything from budget counseling to credit counseling to housing counseling, which is really important, especially in these days and
We're
times.
going to talk a little bit about that today.
All right. Bankruptcy counseling. So anything, anything that somebody might need in the way of debt management or financial literacy education or counseling, any sort of financial counseling, we can help with. And we've been doing it since 1966. Like you said, we're right here on the shore. We have offices in Salisbury, in Easton, in Dover, and we're just here to help.
That's wonderful. For people who aren't able to come into your offices, do you do counseling by phone as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We do phone counseling, and that's a lot more convenient for some people because we do that late into the evening, up to 9 o'clock at night, most nights of the week. So we do a lot of telephone counseling.
Oh, that's excellent. Well, we're going to really take a radical shift of gears here.
Okay.
Because
I'm nervous.
We're getting close to Valentine's Day. Don't get too nervous. Here we are in February, and romance is in the air.
Okay.
So we're going to be talking about couples and finance today. It's funny, when I was thinking about, what it's like when you're married or you're living together and you're a couple, before that ever happens, you talk about a lot of different things that are very serious topics to you, like family. Mm-hmm. You talk about if you want children. You might talk about going on vacations, what kind of vacations you like to go on together. You might even think about how to decorate the apartment. But one thing that couples rarely talk about ahead of time is personal finance. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is?
Well, I just think it's because money's a really private thing, and I think it's not something that a lot of us feel comfortable, discussing with other people, whoever they are, So I think that lends itself to some gaps maybe in the conversation that should be. I think that has a lot to do with it. It's very private, and I think that it has a lot to do with kind of what our relation to money is and what money means to us, and that's something that for a lot of us was probably developed as we grew up.
We may not even know what our feelings are.
Exactly. So maybe you don't want to have that discussion if you saw your parents, say, fight about money, or you might be fearful of that topic, or so it might just be something that's uncomfortable, and so a lot of folks don't do it.
That makes sense. I would bet that a lot of times people don't talk about it too because they never saw their family talk about it.
Right. Just the opposite. They, like you said, they never saw anybody talk about it. Nobody ever had those kinds of conversations.
So there's no real role modeling for that.
Right. They don't have a frame of reference. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
The other thing that I think is interesting is that money means so many different things to us. Mm-hmm. I mean, in a way, given our society, it's sort of part of our identity in a way.
Sure.
I mean, you think about it, it means control. Mm-hmm. The person who owns the purse strings.
Whoever has all the toys wins, huh?
That's exactly right. Some people equate it with happiness, and or they might equate it with something to fear, even from the standpoint of what.
Yeah, there's a lot of different levels of feeling or not feeling, about money. So I think that it's important that folks understand, what that other person's issues or feelings or thoughts about money are to kind of put us on the same page, when it comes to handling household finances.
Let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, it seems like there are a lot, we all bring our own baggage in with it as far as how we view money. Why is it so important for us to understand our partner's view of it as well?
Right, because I think that as a household, the decisions and the things that happen with money, they're going to impact each person, So I think you have to understand that other person's point of view and, the way that they think and the way that they handle things. So there's some engaging, that can go on.
So you're doing it together.
Right,
It isn't
right.
like you're just going off in your own separate directions.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I can see how that would be important from the standpoint that if you aren't planning together, it isn't,
Yes,
it isn't a situation where there could be some very serious balls that get dropped,
exactly.
so to speak.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think that you need to be focused on some key things, when you come into it, asking maybe some key questions. What are your goals? What do you feel about money? I think that's an important one. How do you feel about money? What are your financial goals? How much debt do you have?
Oh, that's a sticky one.
Right. What's your credit score? These are questions that might be hard, but I think they need to be asked.
Okay, well, why don't we look at some of those questions? Starting out with, I've heard that one of the things, the first things to talk about is what is your view of money and of spending? Why is it important to know that about your partner?
I think it's important because you can get into some trouble if you don't. Again, like we were saying, you want to have an understanding of that person's viewpoint because you want to know what their habits are, why they are what they are, where they're going, what they're thinking. So again, we can kind of get maybe onto the same page. So it's important to have that understanding and know where they want to go, where they see themselves, where they see the household budget, how they view it. So it's important to find out how they feel about spending money, about saving money, what their
Not all, you might not have the very same views on those
you
things.
might not. Your thoughts might not, or your feelings might not mimic that other person's, but can we come together? Can we talk about it? Can we institute some things that are going to, still allow us to move forward and reach what it is we're trying to do at the same time, keeping everything in the household going?
At that point, we're really in some ways talking about goals. And each of us, it seems like, we all have dreams and goals that we come to a relationship with. Why is it important to understand what your partner's goals are?
Right, because I think that, each of our goals say something about us, So what are your financial goals? What are you trying to achieve? Because also they're going to impact the household. They're going to, it's going to mean that we're going to have to do some sharing and
Hopefully
some
we're
working
gonna
on
be
things
blending our
together.
goals,
Right,
yeah.
right. So where do you want to live? Do you want to buy a big house? Do you want to have a lot of kids? We've got to know what the goals might be from that standpoint, so we can be sure that, again, we're moving along kind of at the same clip when it comes to the money in the household. So I think it's important in understanding and also accepting, what goals are. They may not be, something that you feel maybe is a worthy financial goal, but if it's possible, if it can work, if we can talk about it together, if we can blend it, like you said, into what's happening in the household, it might be something that we might be able to achieve kind of, maybe further down the road.
I think it also seems like it would be a good idea to talk about goals because that automatically helps you to start planning together. And it's really easy. I know I've had different views of money throughout my life, and there was a point in my life where I didn't think a lot about planning at all. I sort of spent as I went.
Right. A lot of people, that's very true, and a lot of people don't. I say all the time, some people only think about money when they don't have it.
I was exactly that person.
When it runs out is really the only time they start to think about it. So, but these are the things. If you have somebody who's kind of a spendthrift like that, kind of just wantonly spending money, but then the other person is really maybe sort of a tightwad,
Just the opposite, right?
And they've really got everything down in the books and they know to every penny. That's not going to work.
So talking about financial goals and stuff is one way to sort of both of you get on the same page.
To kind of balance that out and say, well, this is what we need to do, because the other thing is it's going to impact the household.
Absolutely.
So it's something that you have to have an understanding of.
Well, that brings up another question, especially if you are, a lot of us marry not at the very beginning of our lives, but well into their lives, and we've had other lives before.
Right, our past lives.
And during that time, we may have accumulated debts. Why is it important to talk about what each of you brings to the marriage as far as debts? And then also, how do you do that? That seems like a really scary
I think you just got to do it. I think you just got to do it because, again, it's going to impact the household. So if you come in with, you've got $150,000 in student loans that you don't tell anybody about,
right.
and it comes out later, that could cause some bitterness, that could cause some trouble. And it also means that if you've got all this debt, you've got student loans and you've got maybe credit cards from before, whatever it might be, you're having to pay those things, so it's taking away from what your contribution to the household is.
That makes sense.
And that's going to make a difference. So these things have to come out. You have to ask these questions and find out, what it is that you're going to have to deal with. Because, we come in and we're individuals. So this could impact, we can be impacting each other, with our individual debt. So it's definitely something that you have to talk about.
And it's much better to know ahead of time rather than after the fact, it would seem like.
Absolutely.
It's a matter of trust, really.
Right, right.
Well, one way it seems like that you would be able to find out about each other's debts and sort of your history from a financial point of view is to look at each other's credit reports. Do you recommend doing that?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. Because our credit reports, our credit scores, they sort of follow us. They don't sort of follow us. They do follow us in our adult lives. They're really a record, of what we've done and how we've been over the last 7 to 10 years.
When it comes to credit.
Yeah, when it comes to credit, obviously.
Bills,
how
right?
we've paid things, have we been on time, are we late? So there's information in there, I think, that we need to know, we need to share. So yeah, I think you pull the credit report, you find out what's on there. Now, maybe pull it first yourself.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Before you go,
before
you go sharing it with everybody, right? But you want to pull it, see what's on there, make sure there are no mistakes, make sure you haven't been the victim of theft, make sure there's nothing there that shouldn't be or that you need to dispute. So you get all that information, you get the credit score. Now you can go to www.annualcreditreport.com and get a copy. You're entitled to one copy of your credit report from each credit reporting agency every year.
For free.
For free, absolutely.
Right.
So you go to that site and you get them. You stagger it throughout the year, get one in January, one a few months later, another a few months after that. But it's important. And also on that site, you can get your credit score, but that you're going to have to pay for.
How much does that cost?
Cost you about $12, $15 or so. But you want to get it. I really think once a year it's a good investment. Get that score, know what that number is. But again, this is information that has to be talked about.
And then you say, I'll show you mine if you'll show me yours. But it seems like it would be a good tool.
Yeah,
because
it really
it's
is.
a place where you can really start discussing.
Yeah, it's a jumping off point for talking about it.
Well, another area it seems like to me that is like a constant question in marriages. I mean, it can go on throughout a marriage or a relationship is who owns the pants as far as on the finance.
Right.
I mean, in the sense of what is the style as far as how finances are managed in your home. And that seems like that would be a really important thing to talk about ahead of time.
And it is. It really is. That's a really good point because it's all about how you operate. So we're going to say, is this going to be kind of an open sort of financial relationship? And I really think it should be. Everybody should have input. There should be a lot of talking, a lot of discussion about who's going to do what. It's fine if one person, handles the books and they, do all the math, but there really should be some coming together, talking about, okay, where are we? Have we paid this? What's going on with that? There really should be some shared input.
It should be something you do together.
Right. Because I really believe that everybody's input is valuable. So even if you're a stay-at-home mom, that maybe isn't earning an income and maybe your spouse is the breadwinner, still, that stay-at-home mom, her input is just as important, her opinions, what she knows about the situation, all of that. So I really believe it's about how we operate and how we operate within the realm of handling the finances is important.
I think also if you aren't operating together, it's been my experience at least, if one person is just going off and spending on their own or they're not really paying attention to the budget. They're kind of going off the reservation and doing their own personal budget
Yeah.
on the side,
Yeah, and
that can really lead to trouble.
It really can. It really can cause problems if you're operating outside of the common sort of interest, because again, it's about the household. So how is that going to impact the household finances? Is that going to leave the other person high and dry? So those kinds of things have to be dealt with. So yeah, it's about coming to some consensus, about how things are going to be handled.
It also seems like it would make it easier to actually save money ultimately together. Like from a budget point of view, if you sit down and talk about those things.
We're more able to work toward whatever goal it is. We're more able to say, okay, well, this is the money for retirement, or we're saving for children's education, or that kind of thing. But we've got to be involved. You have to have those conversations, and it does make it easier if there's some open discussion.
That makes sense. I heard a good example, actually. Like with a couple, if you have a couple and each of them buys coffee each day, when they go to work, that's $2 a day for each of you for that, so that's $4. And then each of you eats out and has another $6. So that's another 16.
That's 16, right? I'm counting. So that's $80 a month,
right?
Which is $300 and some a year.
And
so yeah, you're right. We've got that's a great point. We've got to be talking about that. We have to know, okay, now, hey, did you spend? Did I spend? Did you?
Right.
Because once we come to that number, that $300, even less maybe than $300, that's money we could have put into the grocery part of the budget,
Right, and you together you make your sandwiches, or one of you makes the sandwiches, you make coffee, both of you take it to work and save that money.
Things like that seem kind of simple, or seem like not really to matter so much. We just saw, just doing that quick math, how that adds up. So it's imperative that you talk about that kind of thing. If there's money, to be saved, you've got to save it.
You have that much more that you can take on vacation or for retirement. Well, we're going to shift gears at this point and talk about one of the major expenses that couples have, and that is your home. If you have a mortgage, that's generally one of the biggest expenses that you have each month.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of Marylanders that are really having trouble with that particular expense. Foreclosure is still a major problem throughout the United States. But before we came on the show, I checked, and it's interesting. The most recent figures I could find were for November. But here in Maryland, 1 in every 1,800 housing units received a foreclosure notice in November. It's hard to believe that 1 in 1,800, that's a lot of homes. For people that are having trouble paying their mortgages, or who are maybe even a little bit behind on their mortgages, what can they do?
You need to get some help. You need to, first of all, don't avoid your lender. I always say that to folks. Contact your lender. If they're contacting you, talk to them. They're sending you mail. Open up, read, respond to all the mail that your lender sends. But if you need help, get it. Go to a HUD-approved counseling agency like Consumer Credit Counseling Service in Maryland and Delaware, and get the help that you need.
Let's go back one step on that as far as with the lender. Why is it so important to open the mail that you receive from them?
Well, really, because this is something that I think a lot of people don't get. They get into the situation of they're frightened and, oh, I might lose my home. The lender really doesn't want your house.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah.
They really don't.
What are they going to do with it?
So if you're behind, talk to them, because there may be something, that can be worked out, some program that you may qualify for, something like that. But if they're sending you mail, if they're sending you letters and you're not opening them, you're not reading them, you're not responding to them, things are just going to get worse. Early on, when your lender's sending you things, in the letters that they're sending, there might be information about programs that could help you. They might be saying,
that's an important thing.
They probably are saying to you in those early letters, hey, call here for this or this or this. But you're not opening them, you're not reading them, you're not responding to them, so you don't know. Time goes on. As you get further behind, the letters that they then begin to send you may contain details about pending legal activity against
that you need to know about.
Need to know. So if God forbid, if your situation got so bad and say you ended up in court, I didn't get it, or I didn't read it, or I didn't open it, is not going to be an excuse. that's going to save you in that situation.
makes sense.
So it really is important to read and open and read and respond to everything, anything that your lender sends.
I would think it's also important to know your rights.
Sure, absolutely. You want to know your rights because you don't just want to be shaken and quaking in fear. You want to know what you can do, what you have a
You
right
at least
to.
can feel more empowered
Exactly.
in what you're
That's
doing.
exactly right. For instance, in Maryland, a lender has to, I just forgot.
Stop tape there and we'll...
It's 90 days after your first day of default.
Let Dee take a look at this because it's specific.
All right, just let me know. Stop it.
See, I said 90 days from.
Okay.
And we are rolling on both, so we are on.
So Dee, let's take a step back for a minute and talk about your mortgage provider again. I think it's important to know the rights that you have in dealing with them.
Sure. Because
Cut. I started that wrong because that was actually blending two questions.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
We'll start with you again next time.
Oh, okay. Third time's a charm.
Sure.
Okay. Deanna, I think it's also important for people to know their rights when it comes to their mortgages. How do
Certainly.
they go about doing that?
Certainly, you do. You want to know what your rights are because you don't just want to be quaking and shaking in fear all the time. It can help you feel more empowered, to do something, to know what your rights are. So I say, look at your loan documents. Pull them out. Find out what your lender can do, can't do. All of the information that's enclosed in them because they'll tell you. That information will be there. I can give you an example. Here in Maryland, a lender must wait 90 days before. It's not before. It's
okay.
after.
I'll tell you how we'll handle that. Let's go back and do that again. And when you get to that point, just say that it's important to know what your state rules and regs are.
No, I want to say that. I can say
You
it.
want to say that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Wherever you want.
Okay, we're going to just take it again from the same spot. Take 4. Deanna, I think it's also important to know what your rights are when it comes to your mortgage. How do you go about finding that out?
I think that's important. You really do need to know what you have a right to, just so you're not totally fearful. You feel empowered, I think, with that knowledge. So pull out your loan documents, read them through, see what's in them, find out what your lender can do, can't do. It's important to know the laws, the foreclosure kind of rules and regulations in your state.
Right, it varies.
Right, it does. It absolutely does. For example, here in Maryland, a lender must wait 90 days from the date your loan is in default before filing a foreclosure claim against your property. So that's something you got to know. You have to have that information. They have to send you something called the Notice of Intent to Foreclose 45 days before the foreclosure is filed. So these time frames, these dates, this is information that if you had, at least you would feel more empowered. You would know what the process was going to be. You would know what your rights are.
What does the intent to foreclose include?
It tells you why your loan is in default. It tells you the current amount that you owe, how much it would take to bring your loan current. That kind of information is all enclosed in there. So it's important to have and to get. And they do have to send it to you 45 days before.
And I'll bet it also includes contact information as far as you getting back in touch with them.
Who you call, everything. Absolutely.
Well, so you've gone through all of that, and you've done what you can with your lender, but you're still sort of on your own and nothing's resolved. What can you do? Where can you get outside help?
You call us. You call Consumer
okay.
Credit Counseling Service of Maryland and Delaware. You call a reputable HUD-approved housing counseling agency. The counselors there can help you. They can work with you. They can take you through the process, what it's going to mean, what you have to do, even work and sort of negotiate kind of between you and your lender, working with getting your situation resolved. So you really need to get some outside help. You can call our housing counselors at 1-866-731-8486. And they can help you there over the phone, or you can schedule a visit to come in and see one of them face to face. But you really do want to get help from a HUD-approved agency.
So with foreclosure prevention counseling at CCCS, does that cost money?
No, that's free. That's absolutely
it's
free.
free. Oh, that's
absolutely
wonderful.
free. Absolutely.
Well, it's interesting. I've heard that there are lots of different groups, lots of different organizations that provide foreclosure prevention, counseling, or advice.
Yes.
And not all of them are alike.
No, they're not.
for those, some are not real, honest, or scrupulous. How do you know when one is questionable?
Yeah, there's some things you can look for, because just like you said, some of them are they don't have a client's best interest at heart. They're out to make a profit, and they can be really bad. So there's some things you want to avoid. If you're dealing with somebody and they instruct you not to talk to your lender, or not to talk to your attorney, or not to talk to your housing counselor, you want to avoid that. That's bad business. You're dealing with someone, and if they say try to get you to sign papers that you don't understand, or that you haven't had a chance to read, or they want to sign the papers for you.
Oh, that's a cute one.
Right. Or the papers are filled with blanks, that kind of thing. You want to avoid that. Again, those are some of those unscrupulous kind of behaviors. I can't remember anymore.
Cut.
We can pick up the 6 behaviors.
Oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of them, and I just
Yeah,
blanked,
she has
Nancy.
a giant list she has to remember. That's why.
Oh yeah, my goodness. See if I just had it there.
Take a moment and look at it.
Okay.
Okay. You want to take it from unscrupulous, blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah?
those are some. Are we ready?
Yep.
Those are some unscrupulous behaviors that you can kind of be on the lookout for. If somebody suggests that you lease your home and buy it back over time, no, bad idea, bad idea. If they try to get you to pay up front before they've done anything,
Oh,
that's a
one.
big one. That's
Yeah.
a big one.
Especially where they can get free credit.
Exactly. That's just what I was about to say,
free
because
housing
housing
counseling
counseling is free. So
Yeah.
if they're asking you to pay before they've done anything, that's a bad idea. Bad idea. I'm trying to think of some others. If anybody says to you, make your mortgage payment to me, rather than to your lender.
Run for the
Don't
hills.
do it. Run for the hills, exactly. So these are the kinds of things you can watch out for. If anybody's talking to you or saying these sorts of things or suggesting these sorts of things to you, you want to avoid them.
In doing your homework, it makes sense. So we've talked about several of the things that people might do that you want to avoid. What strategies can you employ to make sure you're not taken advantage of?
Well, I think like you just said, doing your homework, really checking into, who it is that you're thinking about dealing with, finding out, what their reputation is, looking up some information about them. Are they HUD approved? That's a big thing. That's a big thing. Finding out what the fees are up front. Ask the questions. Are there going to be any fees? Are there going to be any charges?
That's an important one.
What kind of services are you going to provide me beforehand? So you really want to check into them. You don't just want to go blindly, into working with anybody before you've done some research on them.
I would think if they make a promise to you that they can for sure get rid of your foreclosure.
And we say it here on Money Talks all the time. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So if anybody is saying to you, oh, we can guarantee, they're making hard and fast guarantees, we promise you we can stop the foreclosure, turn away. Turn away. A reputable credit counselor isn't going to say that. They're not going to promise you results. They're going to say, I'm going to work as hard as I can for you. I'm going to do everything that I can. I'm going to call everyone I need to call. But they're not going to promise you. Who does is lying, frankly.
Both housing and credit counselors, right?
Sure.
Right. Well, I'm going to kind of put you off guard here because we're going to move on from foreclosure prevention.
Okay.
And talk a little bit further about CCCS's housing counseling programs.
All right.
I know that you provide other types of counseling besides for folks that are behind on their mortgages. What other kinds of housing counseling do you provide?
Sure. We offer pre-purchase counseling, which is counseling for folks who are just getting into the home buying process. So that's a big deal. And it really is. There's so much information within that process that you really do need to get that counseling.
It's the biggest investment you'll ever make, right?
Exactly. So you need to understand. So we offer that counseling, that course where folks get a certificate that says that they've been through the pre-purchase counseling. That's a really, really good thing, I think. It's a wonderful course. So we offer that. We offer reverse mortgage counseling, kind of on the other end of the spectrum.
Right, for those of us who are getting older
for
and might be
seniors,
considering.
exactly,
Right.
for seniors 62 and older who want to use, the equity in their home. But there's some counseling. Reverse mortgage is a process, and it's not the.
It's complicated.
Yes, it's very
complicated. And it isn't the right thing
it's
for
not
everybody.
the right thing for everybody.
No.
So there's some counseling that goes with that, and we do offer that as well. Obviously, foreclosure prevention, mediation, working with counselor or working with clients and their lenders on getting modification, all that kind of thing we're doing in our housing department. There are great counselors there, and they're doing great work.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to believe, Deanna, but we have come to the end of another show.
The end again.
No, it's hard to believe. But before we end again, we've kind of been visiting tax time topics. And at this point, what I like to talk about is people are at that point where they're preparing and getting ready to file their taxes. Are there any free services out there to help people do that?
There are. Maryland Cash, the Maryland Cash campaign, and we're so proud that Maryland Cash is a partner of ours. But Maryland Cash campaign is offering free tax assistance, free tax preparation assistance to individuals who earn less than $25,000 and families who earn less than $49,000 a year. You can go to what they call one of their VITA sites, and you can get that free tax assistance. So go to their website. It's www.mdcash.org, and you can find out where all the sites are and the hours of operation. But they're doing a great program
where
there.
One is that's closest to you.
Exactly. Where one is that's near you, and you can get to them. And Maryland Cash is doing a great job with tax preparation assistance at the VITA sites. Also, AARP.
Oh, for seniors
Yeah,
again.
they're offering free tax assistance to folks who are 60 or older. And it's interesting, they have retired seniors doing the tax preparation, the volunteers. So they're doing great work with tax help. So you can go to their site, www.aarp.org, and find out some information about them.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yep.
I've also heard that online tax filing is becoming a big trend. What do you know about online tax filing?
Well, I know that it's popular. I read not too long ago that something like 100 million people last year filed online. So it's very, very popular. So it's definitely something you can go to irs.gov. They have a lot of, I believe it's called free file software, something like that, where it's like 20 different tax preparer kind of organizations, associations, and you can go to the site and get the help from them, and it's free. And some of them even support, it's not just for federal returns, some of them even support state tax returns.
Now, there is an income involved with that, though. You have to have a limit on your income.
You do, and you know what? It's interesting that you say that. I believe that income limit is $58,000. You can't make more than $58,000 to use that. But then anybody, no matter of your income, can go again to irs.gov and just use the e-filing forms, the fillable forms they call them. Exactly, the fillable forms. And it's free. It's free. So there's some good information out there. Good help for getting your taxes done, because it's almost that time.
Oh. Well, on that note, it's as inevitable that we end as taxes are inevitable.
Yes.
It's been wonderful having you here again.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
You're
Thank
always
you for
a wealth
having
of
me.
information.
Thank you. And thanks to PAC 14.
Yes, very good thanks to PAC 14. And on that happy note, we'll end Money Talks.
Okay, I had switched. Deanna, if you could just one more time. The camera on the wall. The camera on the wall.
Oh, I'm like, what? What are you saying?
Which camera on the wall?
What are you talking about?
Where would you like to start from, Tom?
So I just want Deanna to turn to the camera in the corner to your right.
The camera in the corner to my right. Over there?
There you go.
Hey.
And that's where you're going to look. So you turn from Nancy and you say thanks to PAC 14.
Okay.
So look at Nancy, and then Nancy's going to say thanks for being here, and you're going to say thanks for having me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whenever you're ready.
Got it. You say thanks for being here.
I say that after you say.
No.
Oh, you want me to say that first?
I told you.
You thank Deanna, then she thanks PAC 14.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay.
I had it in reverse order. Deanna, thank you so much for being here. You're always a wealth of information.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure. And thanks to PAC 14.
Absolutely. Big thanks to PAC 14. And on that happy note, we'll say this is the end of Money Talks.
Good. Nancy, if you could look at Deanna for me, listen. I don't have that much to pick up. I was better with my switching.
That's totally fine. You do really well.
Listening.
And
Yes, because I'm saying something really
you're-
smart.
Yeah. No, you're listening to Nancy now, and I do need one, and I'm trying.
I'm not as smart as
No, yes,
This
you
is the
are.
only
You're
one I
smarter
missed,
than me.
Deanna. You're looking at Nancy, and you give me one of your.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I needed.
Oh my
Wow,
gosh.
that was good.
Do you know, for not knowing this, because I really didn't know this, we